All right. Hey, good morning. Happy Monday, y'all. K.Short here. It is Monday, June 3rd, 2024, and it's actually my brother's birthday, so happiest birthday to Mike McCluskey over in Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah, I just felt super inspired to record and chat with y'all today. As you all know, this channel has been a little bit dormant for the past few years, but I am finding a resurgence to come back and share with all of you what I've been learning, as this has really been the point of this channel in the first place. It's really just kind of sharing my journey, teaching, and learning together, and hoping that it's going to support you in your journey. And so, just to be fully transparent with y'all, I am in a huge transition in my life in terms of just a reorientation, of a new identity, a new perspective, a new way of living life. And to be fully transparent, it's because of Jesus. And so, this has been an ongoing resurgence for the past couple years, but I got baptized again in 2017. And so, more importantly and more recently, the past 2 years I've been working at a church. And so, as you would think to happen, that you'd get closer to Jesus and in your faith. And so that's where I'm at. And so I'm really just bringing y'all along to my daily devotional. I just felt inspired to do so because I'm making these connections in different ways through the content that I'm consuming. And so I want you to know, like, I'm still making sense of all of this, and it'll take the rest of my life. And so I think the biggest thing, especially being someone who's in this vessel, who's been traditionally marginalized in the past forever years, I think the messaging that we received is confusing. It's confusing. And so for me, it's a big deal to critically think and to do my own research and to do my own study. And this is what I'm bringing you into today, as today it just kind of percolated on me to share with you where I'm at, in hopes, again, that it's going to support you in your journey. So, again, every day I try my best to get into my daily devotional. The reason why I do that is because a lot of times most people wake up in their day and the first thing that they clothe themselves with is their clothes, right? And for me, I'm in the practice of, like, how do I cover my day? How do I cover my day with the Word? How do I cover my day in gratitude? How do I cover my day in silence and meditation and presence? And I'm not perfect, but I've noticed that when I cover my day, before before jumping into the world, my days just go so much better, y'all. So the quote that sticks with me the most is, it's a song, actually. If you're not first, I'm already losing. So just for us to tap in and realize, if we don't make that a priority, we've already lost the day. So I'm like, I ain't trying to go into a losing day. We're gonna go into a winning day every day. So again, I'm just in my daily devotional practice, and I'm just making some connections. When it comes to temptation, when it comes to sin, when it comes to rules and boundaries and things of that sort, and really making sense of what it means to be Christ-like. And I hope that this is really refreshing for you, because, again, this is just a part of me and connecting the dots. So what I'm going to be bringing you into today is my daily devotional, which led me, and this is literally the path, which led me to my Bible, which led me to this current book that I'm reading, is The Power of Now, practically a classic. And then this post that I got from a past pastor when I first moved to San Diego. He was a pastor for an affirming church, and he was also in Arizona. He recently just not left the church, but he recently stopped doing pastoral stuff in a traditional sense, and he wrote a book called Unclobber, which talks about the clobber passages around homosexuality. And so now he's touring and writing and making music, and he's just taking matters into his own hands. And so he's one of the few accounts that I actually follow on Facebook. And so this came up today. So I'm just going to kind of share with you how I feel like they're all connected, and hopefully supports you in your journey. Everything I say and reflect on is all on the table. Take whatever feels truthful to you, and go from there. We're all just trying to figure it out and make the most of it while we're here. So let's get started. All right, first and foremost, let's get into daily devotional. And so, full transparency, this is from June 2nd. So this is from yesterday. And so sometimes what I like to do with my daily devotional is I don't mind being a little behind, because sometimes that word for the day doesn't really resonate in this moment and in this season of my life. And a lot of times it does. And so I just use it as a starting point throughout the day, as opposed to like some people, they just like to close their eyes and put their finger in the Bible, and that guides them in their day. But I like just having something that's more tangible, and I can see that, oh yeah, I'm getting through something. So we're in June 2nd. Relax in my healing, holy presence. Be still while I transform your heart and mind. Let go of cares and worries so that you can receive my peace. Cease striving and know that I am God. Do not be like the Pharisees, who multiplied regulations, creating their own form of godliness. They got so wrapped up in their own rules that they lost sight of me. Even today, man-made rules about how to live the Christian life enslave many people. Their focus is on their performance rather than on me. It is through knowing me intimately that you become like me. This requires spending time alone with me. Let go, relax, be still, and know that I am God. Yeah. Because of the book, The Presence, the Power of Now, I've been really practicing that presence. A mantra that I read in the book yesterday was like, how do you sit still and ask yourself, what's my next thought going to be? And it's really talking about being more of a witness and a watcher to our thoughts and to our mind, our human mind, right? And what it means to be in this human experience. It's been super liberating doing that, because in a world right now that is so consumed with our thoughts and are constantly being fed so many thoughts and ideas and perspectives, which I'm doing this right now with y'all. But, there's a lot of things out there that aren't truth, and more importantly, not our truth, as we spend some time here on earth. And so I've been practicing presence. It's difficult. It's difficult in this world, y'all. But if it's something that we can be disciplined about, it's a game changer. And also just kind of language. Discipline is actually connected to the word disciple, which I think is really interesting and worth studying. Be still while I transform your heart and mind. Let go of cares and worries so that you can receive my peace. This part, cease striving. Oof. Coming from an Asian background, a Filipino background, the striving part, man, is one that needs to constantly be worked on. Because I think, being first gen in the States, being a first gen college graduate, that was the key, right? That education was the key to success. So cease striving, stop striving. And it's just like this practice of like, I am already more than enough right now. I don't need to become anyone or anything. I just need to be. I just need to be, and that is already worthy. Do not be like the Pharisees, who multiplied regulations, creating their own form of godliness. They got so wrapped up in their own rules that they lost sight of me. Even today, man-made rules about how to live a Christian life enslave many people. Their focus is on their performance rather than on me. It's funny because I was with my friend the other day and we were talking about rules and boundaries. And they were like, what do you think about rules? And I was like, well, are we talking about rules or are we talking about boundaries? And so it's interesting. I think it was a couple days ago, I was in my Bible, and it was just talking about like, don't eat this, don't do that, don't do this. Like, we're missing the whole point is what it seems like. And so yeah, it's just interesting to think like all of these rules, don't sin, right? Don't give in to temptation. Don't like all these things. It's like, we really have to question how it's been interpreted. We have to question the context of when these things were being written. And I say that because I want to bring us to the power of now, and how he's like, even people who were writing the Bible got it wrong, you know? So it's like, yo, like, these folks were also human who wrote the Bible. You know what I mean? They were disciples just like anybody else, and they not anybody else, but they documented it. And like, we weren't there, you know? And if we were, we'd still have our own perceptions on these things. And so, so let's go into the power of now. And this is from yesterday, and I was like, honestly, y'all, like, I'm reading this for myself so I can read this, I can revisit this part again, because I got this from the library. So so here we go. So it's Power Now, page 86. It is in chapter The State of Presence, and that is chapter 5. All right, and so this is like bolded right here. It says, Christ, the reality of your divine presence. Don't get attached to any one word. Y'all, we get attached to so many things. Don't get attached to any one word. You can substitute Christ for presence, if that is more meaningful to you. Christ is your God essence, or the self, as it is sometimes called in the East. The only difference between Christ and presence is that Christ refers to your indwelling divinity, regardless of whether you are conscious of it or not. Whereas presence means your awakened divinity, or God essence. So again, for me, it's like when we talk about how Christ lives in us, it refers to the indwelling divinity, regardless of whether you're conscious of it or not. So whether you think of it or not, there's an indwelling divinity in all of us, as opposed to presence is where we're awakened in that divinity, right? So that presence for me is like when I'm in my practice of being still, I'm conscious of it. I'm just like sitting in it and being awakened to it. So for me, I'm like, what? Like, how many times we talk about Jesus Christ? How many times we say the word Christ, you know? And I just love this. I'm just like, oh, Christ is the indwelling divinity that's in us. That's when they say like Christ lives in you. That's why when they're like, oh, like it lives in all of us. It's like, oh yeah, this divinity lives in all of us, right? So again, it says don't get attached to any one word. And that's the thing about today. People, we love words, and we love getting attached to things very easily. Many misunderstandings and false beliefs about Christ will clear if you realize that there's no past or future in Christ. What is the past, y'all? A lot of times, if we're depressed, it's because we're stuck in the past. If we are feeling anxiety, it's because we're stuck in the future. Okay? Many misunderstandings and false beliefs about Christ will clear if you realize that there's no past or future in Christ. To say that Christ was or will be is a contradiction in terms. Jesus was. He was a man who lived 2,000 years ago and realized divine presence, his true nature. And that's why for me, people were like, oh, you know, Christianity things. I was like, I'm a believer in Jesus. Like that dude, my role model. You know what I mean? Like some dude that lived here a long time ago. And it's because he realized his divine presence, his true nature. And so he said, quote, before Abraham was, I am, unquote. He did not say, quote, I already existed before Abraham was born, unquote. That would have meant that he was still within the dimensions of time and form identity. The words I am used in a sentence that starts in the past tense indicate a radical shift, a discontinuity in the temporal dimension. It is a Zen-like statement of great profundity. Jesus attempted to convey directly, not through discursive thought, the meaning of presence, of self-realization. He had gone beyond the consciousness dimension governed by time into the realm of timeless. The dimension of eternity had come into this world. Eternity, of course, does not mean endless time, but no time. Right? Like when we think about eternity, it doesn't mean endless time. It just means that time doesn't exist. Thus, the man Jesus became Christ, a vehicle for pure consciousness. And what is God's self-definition in the Bible? Did God say, I have always been and I always will be? Of course not. That would have given reality to past and future. God said, I am that I am. No time here, just presence. Like, I love this, y'all. It breaks it down in a sense of like, oh, this is what the Bible is actually saying, according to Eckhart Tolle, right? Like, there's no past, there's no present, there's no past, there's no future. There's just the present, right? The power of now. I am that I am. No time here, just presence. The second coming, I gotta read this. The second coming of Christ is a transformation of human consciousness, a shift from time to presence, from thinking to pure consciousness, not the arrival of some man or woman. If Christ were to return tomorrow in some externalized form, what could he or she possibly say to you other than this? I am the truth. I am divine presence. I am eternal life. I am within you. I am here. I am now. Again, in the Bible, it's talking about the second coming. You know, it's always saying like Jesus is on his way or God's on his way, like he's going to come, all these things, right? But according to Eckhart Tolle, he says, the second coming of Christ is a transformation of human consciousness, a shift from time to presence. Because right now we live in, I think, the third dimension, and we're all consumed with time all the time, right? But we're going to shift from time to presence, from thinking to pure consciousness, not the arrival of some person. If Christ were to return tomorrow in some externalized form, what is it going to say? What is she going to say? So what they're going to say to you is what they've been saying in the Bible. I am the truth. I am divine presence. I am eternal life. I am within you. I am within you. I am here. I am now. It's already in us. Like this indwelling divinity is already in us. Gets me so excited, y'all. That's why I'm like, I love studying this. I'm like, so cool. Like heaven is already here. Like it's dwelling in me. I bring it here. I get to usher it here onto earth. So it says, never personalize Christ. Don't make Christ into a form identity. Avatars, divine mothers, enlightened masters, the very few that are real are not special as persons. Not Mother Teresa, not Malcolm X, not Martin Luther King, not Buddha, not Gandhi, not anybody. Without a false self to uphold, defend, and feed, they are more simple, more ordinary than the ordinary man or woman. Anyone with a strong ego would regard them as insignificant, or more likely not see them at all. And so that makes me think of the story with Jesus when he comes in on a donkey. Somehow there are stories saying that the person that was going to save him was going to be this handsome, good-looking guy on a freaking stallion or something like that. But no, he was on a donkey. And so I think he was just proving at that point like this simpleness to him, right? Like he wasn't going to be this extravagant hero. Like he was probably more ordinary than the ordinary person. So if you are drawn to an enlightened teacher, it is because there's already enough presence in you to recognize presence in another. And so it's like, think about it. When was the last time you were truly present with someone? And when you're around someone who is also present with you? And, you know, I don't know about you, but I feel that a lot of times when I'm with elders, right? There were many people who did not recognize Jesus or the Buddha, as there are and always have been many people who are drawn to false teachers. Egos are drawn to bigger egos. Darkness cannot recognize light. Only light can recognize light. So don't believe that the light is outside you or that it can only come through one particular form. If only your master is an incarnation of God, then who are you? If only your master is an incarnation of God, then who are you? Any kind of exclusivity is identification with form. And identification with form means ego, no matter how well disguised. Any kind of exclusivity, right? We're all inclusive nowadays. Any kind of exclusivity is identification with form. So that's making me think like, you know, when we put Asian Pacific Islander, LGBTQIA+, when we put anything else, right? The identification, the exclusivity. is with the ego, no matter how well disguised. Use the Master's presence to reflect your own identity beyond name and form back to you to become more intensely present yourself. So if my Master, whatever, is Jesus, use the Master's presence to reflect my own. How do I use Jesus to reflect my own identity beyond my name, beyond Kathleen, beyond K.Short, beyond Kathleen Short? Beyond name and form, back to you, beyond being Filipino, beyond being queer, beyond, being short, beyond being brown, back to you and become more intensely present with yourself. You will soon realize that there is no mine and yours in presence. Presence is one. Group work can also be helpful for intensifying the light of your presence. A group of people coming together in a state of presence generates a collective energy field of great intensity. It not only raises the degrees of presence of each member of the group, it also helps to free the collective human consciousness from its current state of mind dominance. And so, when you think about churches, right, as imperfect as they are, I can imagine, but when they get it right and they bring us back to being one, I can only imagine the power, the collective power that occurs from it. This will make the state of presence increasingly more accessible to individuals. However, unless at least one member of the group is already firmly established in it and thus can hold the energy frequencies of the state, potentially a pastor, right? And other leaders, the egoic mind can easily reassert itself and sabotage the group's endeavors. Although group work is invaluable, it is not enough, and you must not come to depend on it. So this is the same going to church. Just because you go to church on a Sunday with other believers or any other traditions or religions or rhythms doesn't mean that that's going to be enough. Nor must you come to depend on a teacher or a master except during the transitional period when you're learning the meaning and practice of presence. Right? So how many times that we just put our teachers and masters on a pedestal, and I like it says here, it's come to depend on them during transitional periods. And like I shared with all of you, it's I'm definitely in a transitional period, right? So yes, I just had to read that, bring that back to what I read last night. It was so good. I was I got to read this and put this on my channel for myself. And so when it comes to my daily devotional, it brought me to 1 John 3:2, which for myself, I just read all of 1 John chapter 3 because for me, it all connects together, right? So 1 John chapter 3. So it's I'm trying to make sense of, again, language and all of these things. See how much our Father loves us, for he calls us his children, and that is what we are. But the people who belong to this world don't recognize that we are God's children because they don't know him. Dear friends, we are already God's children, but he has not yet shown us what we will be like when Christ appears. So again, I'm just what we are saying in the power of now, if Christ is this indwelling divinity. So I'm trying to make sense of it and dear friends, we are already God's children. We are already divine. We are already worthy, right? But he has not yet shown us what we will be like when Christ appears. And then it says, when Christ appears, he's going to, in the book, in the power of now, it just talks about what is he going to say when Christ appears? That you're already divine, that you're already worthy, that you're already here. But we do know that we will be like him, for we will see him as he really is. And all who have this eager expectation will keep themselves pure, just as he is pure. Everyone who sins is breaking God's law. Don't quote me on this, but sin is, what I've noticed, is a separation. It's just being separated from God, being separated from our Christ-likeness, our presence, right? Things that take us out of that. And a lot of things do that, right? Alcohol does that. Drugs do that. Lust does that. All the 7 deadly sins, right? Where it takes us away from ourselves, which is the presence and the Christ-likeness in us. I know it's hard to wrap because we've been given, especially being in queer bodies, we've been given so many different narratives, right? This is my interpretation. And you know that Jesus came to take away our sins, and there is no sin in him. Anyone who continues to live in him will not sin. But anyone who keeps on sinning does not know him or understand who he is. So I'm thinking about Jesus, right? Like if I continue to practice being like Jesus, Jesus is the best example that has lived so far of all of living in present consciousness, right? Like the highest sense of consciousness. So it's like, but anyone who keeps on sinning does not know him or understand who he is. Dear children, don't let anyone deceive you about this. When people do what is right, it shows that they are righteous, even as Christ is righteous. But when people keep on sinning, it shows that they belong to the devil, who have been sinning since the beginning. And so like when I think about the devil, I think about the evil one. I think about like my thoughts, my doubts, my insecurities, my fear. That's kind of how I'm interpreting it right now. I'm not seeing it as this, boogeyman underneath the ground with horns and red and a mustache and a tail and a pitchfork. That's not how I imagine the devil at this point in my studying. I see the devil and the evil one as, again, as my doubts. It's my fears. It's these things that I go through in my human experience that are not really a part of me. It's just been indoctrinated into me in the systems that we're a part of and what it means to be human in this reality right now. But the Son of God came to destroy the works of the devil. Those who have been born into God's family do not make a practice of sinning because God's life is in them. I don't make a practice to give into my doubts and my fears and my anxieties and my depressions because God's life is in them, is in me. So they can't keep on sinning because they are children of God. Why would I keep leaning into those doubts and those fears and these beliefs and these thoughts? Because I'm a child of God. I'm a child of all that ever is and will be. Like what? Like that's my main identity, y'all. That's your main identity, So it's like, so now we can tell who are the children of God and who are children of the devil. Anyone who does not live righteously and does not love other believers does not belong to God. It's a hard one, y'all. It's a hard one when we're out here in these streets. It's hard to love people. And, just as much people who are believers too. It's just hard. It's hard. But this is the message you have heard from the beginning. We should love one another because we're all one, right? We're all one. We're all one. We're all one. We must not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and killed his brother. And why did he kill him? Because Cain had been doing what was evil and his brother had been doing what is righteous. So don't be surprised, dear brothers and sisters, if the world hates you. Like that in itself, I'm like, man, like how much we want to be liked with social media and all this stuff. But like the world's going to hate you. The world is going to hate us, y'all, because it's so much easier to be depressed. It's so much easier to be fearful. It's so much easier to be doubtful. It's so much easier to yuck people's yums. So easy, so comfortable. Oh my goodness. And they are unfortunately the majority. And it's, as humans, we want to fit in, right? As humans, we want to conform. As humans, we want to, so it's not easy. It's not easy. If we love our brothers and sisters who are believers, it proves that we have passed from death to life. Y'all, you got to think about this. There's some people out there that you would like, I would never, ever, ever love them, ever, ever care about them. But if they call themselves, a believer and are just all up in their sin and temptations, right? Giving into their egos, giving into their jealousy, giving into their envy, giving into their fears. It's really, y'all, it's just fear. Everyone is just so fearful. And we don't love them. It says, if we love our brothers and sisters who are believers, it proves that we have passed from death to life. But a person who has no love is still dead. Anyone who hates another brother or sister is really a murderer at heart. And you know that murderers don't have eternal life within them. We know what real love is because Jesus gave up his life for us. So we also ought to give up our lives for our brothers and sisters. This makes me think of a quick YouTube short that I watched with Jackie Hill Perry and her and her partner. And it was short. It just says, what does it mean to be a leader? And it said that to die to yourself every single day. And what that means to me is like how to die to the ego, to the version that of myself that this world has created, that this world has told me that I'm this little brown girl and this tomboy and this little queer kid and like this Asian and this masculine centered person and da 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 da, all these things, right? How do I die to that? How do I die to that and become more like Jesus? How do I die to my conscious self, you know, my subconscious self that has been created through the world, and how do I live more into my conscious self? How do I follow the footsteps of Jesus and how he did that during his time here on earth, right? During his 33 years here on earth. That's where my brain's at when it comes to understanding this information. If someone has enough money to live well and sees a brother or sister in need but shows no compassion, how can God's love be in that person? Dear children, let's not merely say that we love each other. Let us show the truth by our actions. Our actions will show that we belong to the truth. So we will be confident when we stand before God. Even if we feel guilty, God is greater than our feelings and he knows everything. Ooh, feelings, y'all. We're in our feelings too much. I blame Drake for this one. Dear friends, if we don't feel guilty, we can come to God with bold confidence, and we will receive from him whatever we ask because we obey him and do the things and please him. And this is his commandment. We must believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another, just as he commanded us. Those who obey God's commandments remain in fellowship with him, and he with them. And we know he lives in us because the Spirit he gave us lives in us. So much to unpack there. So much. That's why I'm like, this book, this makes sense why this is the only book in hotels, y'all. So just to wrap this up, going back to Colby Martin, pastor I met in Pacific Beach, San Diego. And again, he is the author of Uncobbler, along with other books and things of that sort. So go follow him if that's something that you're interested in. But he has this thing called hashtag 50 Word Fridays. So I think he's just writing 50 words. And so I read this morning. It says, temptations are not sin. They just are thoughts, ideas, suggestions. What's more, they often come from a good place. That part of you seeking security, freedom, pleasure, relief. Only they're often myopic and self-serving. Temporary relief, but lasting negative consequences. When temptations arise, simply say, thanks, but I'm good here. So when I read this, see, okay, so he puts this note here in his comments. I'm curious what it says. Thank you, Colby. The Christian religion did a weird thing. We moralized thoughts and emotions. We moralized it, good or bad, thoughts and emotions. You know those pesky things that we have absolutely zero control over? They just arise out of nowhere. What I find fascinating is that oftentimes what we call temptations are really just conditioned responses and suggestions that, one, result from deeply patterned programs that we often developed early in life as a response to hard, traumatic situations. And, or, two, they are often suggestions and ideas that, at their root, are trying to help and protect us. A temptation has a pretty decent intent. It offers security, safety, pleasure, relief from pain. It's just that. Their strategies tend to not be a very long-term oriented. I mean, like temptations, right? When we think about drinking or drugs or sex or whatever, right? Like these temptations that is going to relieve pain and give us pleasure and have some security and safety. They're just strategies that tend to not be very long-term. Short-term relief, but with negative consequences in the long run. Anyway, just thinking today about how one of the ways we can lovingly respond to temptations when they arise is to say, thank you for trying to protect me. Or thank you for trying to project me. Or for trying to bring me a kind of pleasure and happiness. I appreciate that, but I'm actually doing okay, or I will be okay. And I don't think that this idea strategy will serve me well in the end. Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love that. Right? So again, the concept of sin being away from God. The temptations, he's saying, are not sin. If anything, they're trying to help us in some way. But the temptations, to not give them that they're bad or good, they just are. And so how many times, and I say this because, my younger self, I had a realization that my younger self is always trying to protect me, because it was something that was conditioned in me as a young person, that to be loved and to be safe and to be cared for was to play it safe to some extent, right? And so when I think about these temptations of wanting to take the easy route or wanting to do what I've always done, in relationships, in my work, in my career, in moments of discomfort, how do I approach these temptations according to Colby? How do I approach them and say, hey, thank you for trying to protect me or trying to bring me a kind of pleasure and happiness. I appreciate that. But I'm actually doing okay. I will be okay. And I don't think that idea or strategy will actually serve me in the end. So good. And so it's like, again, that it's that presence, that practice of presenceness and consciousness, and be like, okay, my subconscious, my unsubconscious that I have developed and created over time to protect myself, to keep me safe, to find security and protection, is having these thoughts that have been working for me to do that. But how do I take a seat and observe these thoughts? How do I watch this thinker? How do I witness these thoughts and know that it's not me? It's not me. And that there's an indwelling divinity in me, a Christ-like dwelling divinity in me that can watch that form, those minds, those thoughts, and know that it's not me. And to be like, thank you, fear. Thank you, doubt. Thank you, safety. Thank you, protection. Thank you for perfectionism. Thank you, imposter syndrome. Thank you. But no, thank you. So I hope that this resonates with y'all. Like, I don't apologize for going this long, because I get to watch this in the future and be like, this is where I was at Monday, June 3rd, 2024. But this is a practice. This is a study. This is me making sense of all of this. Because again, like being in this vessel and what it means to be a believer of Jesus and wanting to follow him in his footsteps, I'm like, dope dude, I can tell you that much. And also like not just accepting what the world has told me about Jesus. Like I'm actually wanting to do my homework, wanting to do my research, wanting to critically think, wanting to ask, wanting to study, wanting to make sense of it all, wanting to connect the dots, and realize at the end of the day, like it's in all for my higher good so that I can continue to do the work here on earth. Man, y'all, we need it. I don't know about y'all. The world is quite interesting. And like, who's going to be our way out? What's going to be our way out? What's going to keep that peace in us through this time in humanity? We get to be humans during a time in humanity that is so interesting and fascinating. And for me, I was like, I just have to choose one thing that's going to keep me here and present and sane, and hopeful and trying, and still putting in effort and just not giving up. The time here on earth, y'all, is going to be very short, pun intended. And I just want to make the best of it. And so that's why I've just decided. Decided means to cut off and to not go back, to be a believer of Jesus, to follow in his footsteps. Because if this is the one book that's been around and is in every hotel, there has to be some truth to it, right? So I hope that this helps you in your journey. I wish you well. I wish you peace. I wish you joy. I wish you rest. I wish you play. And I wish you love. And just want to say thank you so much for watching. Older self, good on you for rewatching this. And I'm curious to see where you're at in the future. All right. I love y'all. I love me. I love all this. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye, y'all.